What does the resignation of Vijay Rupani mean for the BJP's chances in the next elections in 2022? The opposition is mocking the party now, but can resetting Gujarat translate to better prospects for the BJP in the next elections? Winds of change in Gujarat, a top focus this evening. I'm Sneha Mordani. A big shake-up in Gujarat a year before the assembly elections. Vijay Rupani, the chief minister, has resigned in an unexpected move. In fact, he said the decision was taken in the state's interest. Mansukh Mandavia, the Union Health Minister, Nitin Patel, the Deputy Chief Minister of Gujarat, are among the frontrunners for the Chief Minister's post. So what really went wrong for Rupani? Why did he resign all of a sudden? Was the move a course correction by the BJP before the Gujarat elections? Our next report gives you all the answers.
Just months before Gujarat polls, change of guard in the state, an unexpected move from the Chief Minister of Gujarat. Vijay Rupani resigned from his chief ministerial post and tendered his resignation to the governor on Saturday afternoon.
मेरा मानना है कि अब गुजरात की विकास की यह यात्रा प्रधानमंत्री जी के नेतृत्व में एक नए उत्साह, नई ऊर्जा के साथ नए नेतृत्व में आगे बढ़नी चाहिए। ये ध्यान रखकर मैंने गुजरात के मुख्यमंत्री पद के दायित्व से त्यागपत्र दिया है।
But what led to this sudden move? Here's the inside scoop. Sources say public anger over COVID mismanagement and proving to be a non-performer chief minister led to Rupani's resignation. Under his leadership, BJP also could not cross 100 seats in the 2017 election. Lack of coordination with State President C.R. Patil and Chief Minister was also said to be another possible reason. Sources also say that Rupani had no hold over his bureaucrats. But Vijay Rupani kept mum about the reason behind his resignation, instead thanking his party leadership in his parting shot.
अब मुझे पार्टी का द्वारा जो भी जवाब जिम्मेवारी मिलेगी उसका मैं संपूर्ण दायित्व और नए ऊर्जा के साथ प्रधानमंत्री जी के नेतृत्व में माननीय राष्ट्रीय अध्यक्ष जी के मार्गदर्शन में मैं अवश्य काम करता रहूंगा।
Rupani succeeded Anandiben Patel and was sworn in as Gujarat Chief Minister in December 2017. The question is, who will be after him? Mansukh Mandavia, who has just been inducted as Union Health Minister in the Modi government, is one of the frontrunners. Nitin Patel, the Deputy Chief Minister of Gujarat, who's also the Minister of Health and Education, is another possible contender. BJP State President C.R. Patil is also set to be in the running for the top job in Gujarat. Praful Khoda Patel, administrator of Lakshadweep, is also being considered as Gujarat's next Chief Minister. Also among the frontrunners is Gordhan Zadafia, BJP's Vice President of the state and former Minister of State. All BJP MLAs have been asked to reach Gandhinagar and the legislator party meeting is likely to be held on Sunday morning. Rupani's resignation comes a year ahead of the elections in Prime Minister Narendra Modi's home state, and BJP views it as a major prestige battle. Taken by surprise, just like the public, Gujarat Congress working chief Hardik Patel reacted by claiming that this was a bid to distract people from the real issues.
सारे मुद्दों को दबाने के लिए, डाइवर्ट करने के लिए नेतृत्व परिवर्तन की बात चली। विजय भाई ने जिस तरह से प्रेस में बात की 2-3 बार, वो लगातार बोले कि मैं चेहरा नहीं हूँ, चेहरा तो नरेंद्र मोदी है गुजरात में। मैं ये समझना चाहता हूँ कि गुजरात के लोग आज भी अपनी परिस्थिति, अपनी तकलीफ बताने के लिए क्या दिल्ली प्रधानमंत्री के पास जाएंगे?
In a sequence of BJP changing chief ministers mid-course, the party has replaced yet another chief minister. Now, the BJP says this is its attempt at course correcting ahead of a crucial state election. But the opposition says this is loss of face for the Bharatiya Janata Party. With Gopi Manyar in Ahmedabad, Paulami Saha in Delhi for India Today.
All right, let's now take a look at the front runners for the next Gujarat Chief Minister. We have the name of Nitin Patel doing the rounds, currently serving as the Deputy Chief Minister of Gujarat. C.R. Patil is the Gujarat BJP President and also a Member of Parliament. Again, we have the name of Mansukh Mandavia, Member of Parliament. He's the Union Health Minister. He's recently been appointed as the Union Health Minister. Gordhan Zadafia is the Gujarat BJP Vice President. And then we have the name of Praful Khoda Patel. He's the Administrator of Dadra and Nagar Haveli, Daman and Diu, as also Lakshadweep. All right, joining us now are our consulting editor Rajdeep Sardesai, Rahul Srivastava is the National Affairs editor, Rohan Gupta is the spokesperson of the Congress party, and shortly we'll also be joined by Hiren Kotak of the BJP in Gujarat. First to you, Rohan Gupta, the BJP seems to be wanting to put its house in order just ahead of elections, but what does it really mean for the Congress party in the state of Gujarat, where you don't even have a face just yet? What are your own prospects in the state?
See, I see BJP's step of changing CM as, an attempt to try to cover up the COVID failures of the central government. Whenever they do 5 years celebration of any CM, it means that it is a farewell party for that chief minister. And I won't be surprised if the same process is repeated in Madhya Pradesh and Haryana. See, basically, if you see Gujarat, more than 3 lakh people have died because of corona. 75% people were denied access of ambulance and they had to travel at their own cost. Lots of people have died because of oxygen shortage and all. You cannot hide this fact from the people for too long. And, trying to change Vijay Rupani will not change the fact that it is BJP which is responsible for this failure. They have changed the Central Union Health Minister because of the COVID failure. After that, they have changed around 4 CMs now. But you cannot change the fact that this is the acceptance by BJP central leadership that as far as COVID management is concerned, the central government has failed. Even if they transfer more 3-4 CMs, they will not be able to transfer the responsibility of these failures on the state.
But they're resetting Gujarat, and what does this mean for the Congress party? At the end of the day, it's acknowledgement that there is a problem and we're trying to fix that problem. Hiren Kotak of the BJP is also now with us. Hiren Kotak, the Congress says this is the admission of guilt of the fact that you did not do well. Vijay Rupani was a failure as an administrator, and that's the reason why he's had to go.
See, Sneha, it's not about failure, it's about the success story. Because Vijay Rupani, the CM, was been repeated and he was worked as CM in this corona period very well. Because we need to, write with a white pen in a black paper. This is the scenario. Because the tragedy that we all faced, corona, is not for only Gujarat state. It's applied to whole world. And in this scenario, CM Vijay Rupani did very well with not only the government but the party people. Because party president Mr. C.R. Patil did a very wonderful job. With
well, if everybody is doing a wonderful job, then why are things changing? Rajdeep, what do you make of this move, and will this really help BJP duck anti-incumbency of 2 decades in this state right now? Because this clearly looks like an attempt to duck anti-incumbency in Gujarat.
Look, the fact is Vijay Rupani was never a strongman leader of Gujarat. He was a leader who had been brought in a sense, as an interim chief minister after Anandiben Patel resigned in 2016. And remember, in 2017, the BJP squeaked home for the first time since 1995. They were not in triple figures in the 182-member Gujarat Assembly. So Vijay Rupani was never really a leader who had any kind of base. He comes from the Jain community, and in the last few years, there's a sense that the Patidars, the dominant Patel community of Gujarat, believes that the chief ministership is something that they must go to a Patel. Remember, the Congress had played strongly the Patidar card. They've got Hardik Patel now as their working president in a way. So the fact is that the BJP recognized that staying with Vijay Rupani into next year's election was subject to the law of diminishing returns. In fact, there was talk for the last 6 months that he would be replaced. Finally, the BJP has taken this call, and if you look at all the names that you've announced, and I am told Praful Khoda Patel is almost the clear front runner now because he's been summoned to Gandhinagar. the belief is that the BJP needs a Patel face. It needs someone who Mr. Modi and Mr. Shah, most importantly Mr. Modi, will implicitly trust. But importantly, someone who belongs to the dominant, assertive political caste of Gujarat. So I think there's an element of caste politics. There's an element that Vijay Rupani at the end of the day was seen as a weak chief minister. There are question marks over administration in Gujarat in the last couple of years, including on COVID management. But net, and you're seeing this in Uttarakhand, you've seen this in Karnataka, and now importantly, you're seeing it in Gujarat. The BJP High Command is ready to make those changes ahead of next year's elections if they feel that the Chief Minister is someone who cannot deliver a particular state. So I think it was more because Vijay Rupani was a leader who could never really be seen as an electoral face in Gujarat. The BJP is still relying on Mr. Modi to deliver a state, and if that could not happen in 2017 in terms of not crossing 3 figures, the BJP doesn't want to take any chances this time. They wanted to arrest anti-incumbency, hence this change. Likely Praful Khoda Patel as the front runner at this moment.
Also, with this move, Rajdeep, it does appear that the Prime Minister is in direct charge of the elections in Gujarat. And I also want to ask you about the largest strategy of the BJP, this ease with which they make these big changes, these big ticket changes in various states. They've done it in Karnataka, they've done it twice in Uttarakhand, they're doing it in Gujarat. It is so difficult for any other party to replicate this sort of a strategy that the BJP has made a norm, isn't it?
Look, the BJP has a clear high command at the moment. Mr. Modi and to some extent Mr. Shah call the shots. Certainly they do, of course, in the context of Gujarat. The only state where the BJP has found it much more difficult to impose its writ is Uttar Pradesh, where Yogi Adityanath, in a sense, when there were question marks over his leadership, there was a pushback. But apart from that, if you look across the country, the BJP under Mr. Modi has tried to ensure that a generational shift is effected in the BJP state leaders at different levels. There's the likes of Shivraj Singh Chauhan, who perhaps is the last, in a way, remnant, if I may call him that, of the Vajpayee-Advani era. But broadly, they are bringing in people who they are associated with. Praful Khoda Patel is someone who importantly was the Minister of State for Home in 2010 when Amit Shah had to vacate the post after the Sohrabuddin Sheikh fake encounter case. So he's someone implicitly trusted. You've seen him in Lakshadweep. He's controversial. His name has come up even in the Mohan Delkar suicide case, the MP of Dadra and Nagar Haveli, but he's trusted. So it's a trusted next generational shift that the BJP is looking at, whoever they're bringing, whether it's C.R. Patil, Mansukh Mandavia, the various other names that you're speaking about, all of these are trusted aides of Mr. Modi Shah. They have a high command. By contrast, as we've seen with the Congress can't remove, for example, in Punjab, Amrinder Singh.
Yes.
So he remains and then comes Navjot Singh Sidhu as president. That creates some dissonance. The BJP has the leverage, the Modi Shah team has the leverage to impose their leaders. Now, will that work as a strategy? In the long run, it may not. But in the short run, it clearly works because the BJP is in power at the center and they can use that power to impose their leader on state
Yes.
government.
Rohan, I'll just come to you in a bit. I'm just going to quickly get in our National Affairs Editor, Rahul Srivastav also. Rahul, the BJP willing to take this risk, and we've seen it, them do it more often than not. Anybody who's seen as a liability, who's seen problematic, is done away with. What are you really picking up when it comes to the announcement of the next Chief Minister's name in the state of Gujarat, and what are the kind of calculations that the BJP is making when it comes to keeping caste and also performance in mind?
Sneha, allow me some time. I've been working
Sure.
the phone and speaking to a lot of people in Gujarat and in the BJP. Now, let me explain what the picture is. Now, in the recent cabinet reshuffle by Prime Minister Narendra Modi in July first week, 3 men, Mansukh Mandavia, Mr. Purushottam Rupala, Mahendra Monchpura, they were brought in. Now, Mansukh Mandavia can be talked about as a frontrunner. He is close to Narendra Modi, Amit Shah duo, has delivered well in the last 2 months of being the health minister, has shown certain inspirational energy, as BJP says. But then Mr. Rupani was always on a short leash as far as the last few years, a couple of years are concerned. It was always certain that he's going to be replaced prior to elections. PM wouldn't have brought him in, Mr. Mandavia in, if he was to be made the chief minister. So I ruled them out. Similarly, Rupala and Mr. Mahendra Manjupara. Now, these men are from the Saurashtra region, so the Saurashtra region gets represented. From southern Gujarat, you have Darshan Bain, who has been brought in as MOS Textile and Railways. C.R. Patil is the party chief in Gujarat, close to the BJP top brass. These two are from South Gujarat. Now, interestingly, C.R. Patil, who could well be called a front-runner because of his proximity, is a Maharashtrian who is born and brought up in Gujarat. That rules him out. Interestingly, after that, there is another central minister from central Gujarat, that is D.C. Chauhan. Now, he is the Minister for State for Communication. So, these three regions have found representation in the Council of Ministers, also as far as the BJP's posts in Gujarat are concerned. The unrepresented big region is North Gujarat. Now, North Gujarat, Nitin Patel is from North Gujarat, and Mr. Prafulbhai Khodabhai Patel is from North Gujarat, from the Himmatnagar constituency he had represented, which is in the north region of Gujarat. That is why it can be said safely that these two, Nitin Patel and Mr. Praful Khodabhai Patel, could well be the front runners. What goes in favor of Mr. Patel is the fact, Khodabhai Patel, is that somewhere he was brought in at the time of crisis when Amit Shah was sent to jail in one of the cases that he was facing. And Mr. Patel, Praful Patel, received several of the portfolios, 10 odd portfolios were with him. So he's trusted. He has to be brought in, and then elections have to be held because he needs to get elected.
Okay.
And that is why somewhere the strong word put in by Mr. C.R. Patil, the party president to the top high command, that the next chief minister should be a Patel, could well tilt the balance in favor of either Nitin Patel or Praful Patel.
All right, be with us, Rahul. We'll just come back to you for more on that. Rohan Gupta, you wanted to come in. Please make the point that you wanted to.
Yeah, Sneha. So, Sneha, basically taking a cue from what Rajdeep said, Gujarat has been run through a remote control CM, and that is where Gujarat has paid the price. In this corona crisis, more than 3 lakh people have died in Gujarat, and it has been the worst situation. So, I don't think so now Gujarat is going to accept any kind of remote control CM where you have to go to Mr. Modi for each small thing. And that is what we have seen. We have run Mr. Rupani as a remote control CM for 5 years. After the celebration of 5 years, now you are going for a new CM. And that's why, that was the reason why in 2017, BJP could not cross even 100. So I see that now people of Gujarat, this is the time for BJP to apologize to people of Gujarat for running a remote control run government from center and put a person who can be trusted as a leader of Gujarat rather than going for all small things to Mr. Modi and Mr. Shah.
Okay.
This is the time. Otherwise, people of Gujarat, they are not going to accept this change, and you will see the reflection of this change in next year's election.
Hiran Kotak, that's been one of the arguments that after the then Chief Minister of Gujarat and the now Prime Minister Narendra Modi left Gujarat, the shoes that he left behind are very big ones to fill, and nobody's been able to do it. And that's the reason why the kind of changes that we are seeing. I mean, 99 seats in 2017, reduction in terms of the stature of the party in the state of Gujarat. And now the leadership doesn't want to take any chances in the upcoming elections. And that's the reason why Rupani's had to go.
Exactly. That's why we are always, mentioned. Everybody were talking about the imposing CM candidate here. This is why, because Narendra Modi and Shri Amit Shah both were having a very big image and a very strong image. And that's why we are talking about the imposing. Because we have, I just want to state that we have a very democratic process here. And not only here in Gujarat, in every state and in the center also. Because all the MLAs were summoned to come to Gandhinagar, the capital of Gujarat, and they will elect their leader as a CM. This is the process what we follow. And what about the filling the shoe of Narendra Modi ji is what I want to say is after that gap, CM Rupani and Anandiben Patel was very much successful because we faced many challenges natural and the human challenges.
You know,
The natural challenges.
Hiren Kotak, just be with us in all of this, you know, Rohan Gupta, and this is something that we've been looking at also. Look at Chhattisgarh, look at Punjab. I mean, you know, what does the Congress really do when there is a problem in the state? It sits on that problem. That's not the case with the BJP, and you have to give it to them that they do know how to identify the problem. Here, perhaps, Vijay Rupani is being seen as a kamzor kadi for 2022, and that's the reason why the identification of this kamzor kadi and course correction is the route that the BJP has chosen. But same can't be said for the Congress, perhaps.
No, Sneha, I absolutely don't agree with that. If you see the difference between BJP and Congress, if you see our leadership at state, they are very strong leaders. Whether it is Ashok Gehlot ji or Amrinder Singh ji or Bhupesh Baghel ji, those are the people, those are the faces. We fought elections and people have voted in name of those leaders. So you cannot say we do not have this kind of leaders where remote control is run from Delhi and they just have to change. No. Mr. Vijay Rupani, as you have rightly said, is not a people's leader and we have run him for 5 years. BJP has already paid price of reaching to 99 seats. That's what I am trying to tell. There is a difference. When you have people's leaders like Rajasthan, like Chhattisgarh, like Punjab, obviously the deliberation process will be longer and it will take its own time. When you have remote control CM, it takes just 1 day to change. BJP could change 3 CMs, 4 CMs in 3 years in Uttarakhand. Can you imagine that? BJP has changed Karnataka CM, BJP has changed Gujarat CM. Now I won't be surprised if Madhya Pradesh and Haryana CM will be. So basically, again, coming back to my same point, now BJP central realized that COVID mismanagement is a big issue. They are trying to shy away from their responsibility and trying to make this CM scapegoat so that they do not face the wrath of the people. But I don't think so they will be successful in this strategy, as people know that who is responsible for mismanagement in COVID is concerned as far as the country is concerned, and that is the central leadership of BJP.
Okay, that's the argument here in Kotak, that everything is being remote controlled from Delhi. How would otherwise the leadership just change the leadership in states, the manner in which they've been doing so?
Look, Congress is not capable or in the state to mention anything about our party and party, policies, because they don't have any good leader in Gujarat and not in central.
No, that's a different issue altogether, Hiren Kotak. The question here is that the ease with which the BJP central leadership does it is the question the Congress spokesperson is asking. This shows that everything is remote controlled is what he is saying.
Look, again the same discussion raised about leadership. Our leadership always guide us, not impose anybody. This is the process, and we have enough capable people here to decide who will be the chief minister or the any other leadership level. So we don't need this type of process, because the process mentioning this Congress leader here is their tradition only. Because every time we said, if we look at the history of Indian National Congress, everybody was selected and by 10 Janpanth only, and this is not process here to select the leader.
Okay.
We have our MLAs who will select the leader.
Okay. Last 30 seconds to our National Affairs Editor Rahul Srivastav. Rahul, do you think that in days and weeks to come, BJP is going to continue to have this sort of a strategy in other states as well? Because, a lot is going to depend on how the state of Gujarat also does in the next elections, and whether we'll know whether this sort of a gamble and this sort of a risk really paid off, isn't it?
Sneha, I think this is largely it. Uttarakhand, Karnataka, and now Gujarat. These were the ones which were expected changes. Remember, in Gujarat, Mr. Rupani was always likely to be an interim chief minister. Change was supposed to happen 2.5 years. The BJP in 2017 won only because of one factor. The factor that the people of Gujarat who were angry with the BJP government could not vote against Narendra Modi. They didn't want to vote against the son of the soil prime minister. That's what helped the BJP. Out of the 109 rural seats in Gujarat, Sneha, the BJP Congress won 62. They had never done so well in several years. That happened because the people were unhappy. But what happened that Narendra Modi made the difference for the BJP? The BJP does not want to repeat the same problem again. Remember, because Prime Minister can have a limited traction to a certain extent. If the anti-incumbency is too high against the government, the BJP needs to have a leader for 1 year. And that is why rural Gujarat is going to be the next focus. Prime Minister and the BJP from Delhi, government in Delhi, are going to drive new policies for Gujarat, especially the rural folks and the new Chief Minister. One of the two Patels, likely Nitin Patel or Prafulbhai Koda Patel, are going to drive that special focus of schemes and policies in the next 1 year so that the BJP can repeat Gujarat yet again.
All right, Rahul, thanks for getting us all of those details and sharing with us your perspective. I'm thanking the other gentlemen here for joining us. Hiren Kotak, also Rajdeep Sardesai, consulting editor, as well as Rohan Gupta of the Congress Party. Thank you all for your time and your perspective.